Good morning, everyone. Thanks for your time. I think today's first session actually gets to be a little bit interesting because normally we talk a lot about what people are doing, what are the hot topics. But what's also interesting in the marketplace is you get people like Patagonia who stand for something and actually drive actions based off what they stand for. And that's not a negative on all of us in the room, right? We all work for different companies that have different beliefs, styles, and priorities, frankly. You can't run a business without being profitable. But I hope you guys get a lot from Angela today to kind of hear what is it like to work for a brand that stands for something and can live up to what they stand for while still being a profitable and growing company. Okay? So I'm Joseph Dressler, like I said, VP of Sales for a company called Adform. No pitches whatsoever, that's not why we're here. But if you are a brand in the room and you're interested in getting more data and power back from what you run in ad tech, we should talk Monday. Angela?
Hi, I'm Angela Clark. I'm the head of digital. We call it Digital Studio at Patagonia. So I run the full commerce digital experience from the P&L, user experience, technology. I also run consumer insights and analytics for the entire organization. And then I also run another organization called Patagonia Action Works, which is their non-for-profit arm, or I should say the entity that helps non-for-profits within the organization. And I've been there for about a year now, so it's been quite the journey, the first year out, yeah.
So we were trying to figure out why we were placed together. I said, maybe it's because my daughter, who's just turning 13, just got her first Patagonia jacket. Somebody knew that from retargeting, right? All the data we know about consumer behavior, and maybe that's why they put us together. You're from Michigan. I went to Michigan, so we got some weird connections that kind of fly in. Nice. I always love that in the room. It's always one, so I appreciate it. And you're sitting front row, which I applaud even more, right?
Yeah,
so well done.
Absolutely.
So look, let's start with how I started kind of the conversation to the room. Angela, Patagonia does so many great things for the marketplace, right? They stand for so many different areas. I don't want to wet your whistle, so I'll let you kind of highlight, what do you want to tell the room that Patagonia believes in? What do they stand for? And then we'll tie that into how we think about marketing and everything else.
Yeah, so I think most people think highly of Patagonia, and they're a great company, but a lot of people don't really know what it is that we do. So we're an outdoor brand, but from the very beginning, the founders have always been outdoor enthusiasts and wanted to make sure that they left the environment that they were playing in the same as before they showed up. So leave no footprint behind was kind of the ethos from the very beginning. We're actually celebrating 50 years as a brand. And that has been their guiding principle. And they've kind of fallen into various things. And Patagonia was one of the first companies to say we should be doing organic cotton. And they were an innovator in that, and now it's very commonplace. So I think what makes that entity so interesting is we're always challenging ourselves and asking ourselves, how can we do something better and how can we do it the right way? And so for me, having been in the retail industry my entire career, 30 plus years, and mostly for profit and mostly having moments of even when I was a merchant, okay, am I just making stuff to go into a landfill? What am I doing here, But to be able to have conversations and talk about not only raw materials down to end of product and end of life, but then how are our suppliers and what energy are they using to make their products, and that we're constantly saying we could be doing more. And I would say one thing that's really awesome about the brand too is that we don't really market things just to market them. There's a lot of conversation about greenwashing and things of that nature. It's all about the action we take, and that action is what we talk about. We don't talk about what we're going to do. We talk about what we just did, and so that's been a great experience for me.
And to your point, it starts with your founder, right? Yeah. I mean, just if everybody in the room doesn't know it, explain the pledge and the action he's already taken with the billions that he's worth.
Yeah, absolutely. So last year he gave away the company. If you hadn't heard that, just if you were living under a rock, it was huge news. And so what that really meant was, and for people that, I've only been there a year, but there are so many people that have been there 20 plus years, and people are literally drawn to tears. They were so emotional about it because they felt like the work that they've been doing to fight, climate change and help save the home planet, that is the company mission, to save the home planet, just that simple, that it was actually solidified, that there would never be a change of guard where they're going to say, well, that was cute. The Patagonia was about that, and now we're going to do this. We're going to change it to that. Forever, as long as Patagonia is existence, all profits will go towards fighting climate change. And one of the entities they created will actually be able to donate to political causes, which we haven't been able to do before. So really kind of stepping up their game in every way. So
yeah, but pretty remarkable is, again, when it starts from the top, right? Then the rest of the culture is built from that perspective. You mentioned something before that I think will be an interesting story for the room, which is you also mentioned the idea of supply chain.
Yeah.
Right. So how does Patagonia think about, all right, what you control, you can be good stewards of the planet for.
Absolutely.
That's easy. I say softly and carefully because we all know that nothing's actually easy in that perspective. But what's even harder is the partners you work with to make your company worthwhile. Like maybe an example or two for the room to show how deep you guys make that happen. So you're doing everything you possibly can.
Right. Yeah. So we go all the way down to the growers. So if you're talking about, let's take cotton as that same example of organic cotton. We work with the original growers, making sure that they're not using, chemicals and harming their environment. All the way up to the cotton being grown, up to the product being made. We don't airship things. Like when the pandemic was happening and we were running out of inventory, we were just out of inventory because they didn't want to pay for the airship because of the impact on the environment. So there's a lot of times there's sacrifices you make to kind of stand your ground on those sort of beliefs. And then also, if there was a supplier that went, dark because of the pandemic, there wasn't an opportunity to switch to a different supplier because have a fully integrated system that they'd have to go through in a completely different process. And now we're looking at what energy are they using? So, we've been working at this factory for years and we realized they're using coal. So let's help them change to renewable energy. So they really, really 100% believe that. And then in my space, even in digital, I'm having a lot of conversations about where we show up. If we're going to be talking about, freeing wild rivers in Europe, then I'm not going to be on a news ad that's underneath an article about a school shooting and then Patagonia's ad is below that. Like, we talk about these things in great depth all the time, which makes my job a lot more challenging, but it's fun. I think at this stage, if I was early in my career, I'd probably not have the patience for it, truth be told. But here now, it's just kind of great to be like, okay, this is really important. It does matter. So let's talk about it. And so when it comes to finding partners in the digital space, there's a lot of times we talk about like, who do we want to be involved with? We haven't been on Meta. We divested from paid advertising in Meta when it was Facebook years ago, and we haven't gone back to it. And we're not going to TikTok, because we think that might be problematic. And, we talk about the toxicity of social. And for a lot of people, that's one of our biggest ad spaces to drive revenue. And we're not there,
When Angela and I were talking earlier last week, kind of prepping obviously for you guys and even for ourselves, that was a topic obviously that came up. And I said, Angela, you okay talking about it? And she said, yeah, because you guys can all imagine the room. Like, it's a pretty controversial statement, right? To say that you're not going to market on 3 of the largest platforms in the universe. And I'll tie it back together. One, I mentioned before, I've got a daughter who's just recently entertained the world of social media. If you have a daughter or a kid anywhere below the age of 13, but older than 9, it's practically impossible to keep them away in one way or the other. But it's interesting to watch from afar and see how it's affecting her decisions, her desire to be on her phone just to watch more videos. Like, there's no doubt the algorithms are unbelievably powerful. This session will not be a bash on social media. That wasn't the point. But I think it's interesting, and I want to tie it back to obviously this room, which is, look, the other thing that social media has done well is gather large audiences that you can target in a variety of manners, right, and move your business. So what I want Angela to kind of harp on for a little bit is not only the ethical decision that her and her company have made to not use social media, which again, I think in our marketplace is a very big statement, but how do you balance then the idea of finding partners that perform? Yeah. Right. So one of the topics we talk about is it's great to have a vision or an idea that this is what's right for the market, but if that does not allow your company to be profitable and perform well, you can't do that for long. Right? None of us work for a place that has endless funds to run a unprofitable business. So I thought maybe you talked a little bit of the room of all right, knowing you've stayed away from some of the bigger marketplaces in the world for what I would argue some of the right reasons, where have you gone and kind of how do you make those decisions on where to go?
Yeah, so I think that's the interesting challenge for my role. So my role is newly created, and as we talk about growth, I say one thing is being privately held is a huge gift in that way because we can decide what our own levels of profits are going to be, and we can decide our own growth rate. So, where I've been for other brands where I had, 20, 30, 50 comps plans, here I'm looking at, what? I'm going to grow by 7% because I don't have the ability to do the various things I did in my own spaces and my old brands. So we take a more thoughtful approach. I think, again, it goes back to the actions speak louder than the words that we do. So It's the actions that are happening in the stores, it's the actions that are happening in the environments and communities, and we leverage that. So, to be completely clear, we are on those platforms in an organic way, just aren't using it for paid purposes. And so we're having a lot of conversations on where to go next. And we got out of Twitter, which was a big one, because for the activism part of our business, that's where all the action happens, right? If you're going to show up to protest something, that's the real-time action space for that. And so with the activism division, it's called ActionWorks. We support 1,000 grassroots organizations every year, and we help them with skill set building, and then we also help them raise money for a year. And so it's part of like a program that they join. And Twitter was where we would help them raise money. So now we're looking to like, where do I go? And today I say I don't actually have an answer for that yet, right? So I upped their ad budget so they can spend money places they haven't spent before, because they were getting great efficiencies at Twitter. But then in long term is like, is there an opportunity for us to have maybe our own platform in some way, shape, or form, or our own app or something that allows us to be able to be in those community spaces? But right now I think it's more about getting more in real life. And being able to capture people's attentions and experience there.
And of course, without putting you on the spot to name any sort of names, right, whether it's official or not, about where you're putting your money, are there characteristics of companies that you're trying to look for in ad tech, publishing side, whatever it is that's best for you? Yeah. Maybe like broad strokes, what are the characteristics of a company that Patagonia says they live up to our ethos or values that are important?
Yeah, I think first, it's kind of the simple, like, are they doing harm or good? I mean, not everybody has trying to save the planet. Not everybody's trying to do things from an environmental standpoint. So those are all probably more nice to haves, but it is first off, it's just old school. Like, do you want to be in a relationship with these people? Are they good people? Are they doing good things? And if they are on their own missions to, fight causes or be part of 1% for the planet, which is also something else Patagonia started, well, 1% of all profits go to helping climate change. If they're part of those organizations, then that's obviously a win as well. But it's a slippery slope, because I've had people come to me and like, we're doing this great thing and let me show you our carbon, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, okay, that's cute, but it's more about what are you really doing? I don't want to get into the sort of greenwashing thing a little bit, and so it's sort of like it's a conversation that we thoughtfully go through.
And so I'm going to bring it up to say that I'm not going to bring it up, right? So obviously, like ChatGPT, AI, everybody loves talking about these topics. We are not going to talk about them here, so if that's what you're interested in, sorry. But another one that's starting to come around in the ad tech space is the idea of sustainability and kind of green media.
Yeah.
In full candor, we have a partnership with Scope 3. We're also going to be launching a product that helps you focus on brands and publishers that are using more renewable energy. I found out when I joined Adform, 91% of all of our energy comes from renewable energy, which I thought was interesting. Right. Not the reason I joined, but good to know that we were doing good things. Yeah. So from your perspective in ad tech, do you see that as being an important area? Do you see that also as like carbon footprints are nice when you offset them, but you're still causing harm and kind of paying just for the offset? Like, what's your perspective on that? Yeah,
I think it's something I'm still learning about, to be honest. I would say as people have kind of started to talk to me about it, I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, it's probably in my former life, I probably wouldn't have even thought about that. So it's awesome people are thinking about that. And I would think that, if you were doing an RFP and there were 5 companies and 3 of them had these sort of carbon things and sustainability, then I'd probably definitely consider them a little more. But yeah, ideally you kind of want to, rub elbows with people who are in the same space as you are. So I would say that it would have a little bit of weight, but then at the end of the day, it's, can we get the job done? So, yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. The door is open for you. You get to ask for anything you want. It's always fun when you have that kind of power, right?
Okay, yes.
Think about your marketing opportunities. And I use marketing, not just advertising, right? Your marketing opportunities for the next 6 to 12 months. Anything you'd love to see the industry do better at, anything you'd love to try to take advantage of. Again, don't feel pressured to say anything specific, right, from a partner. But like big picture standpoint, what would help Patagonia be more successful that would tie to your values and vision?
I have this huge vision that I'm trying to...
See, I knew you were going to have one.
that I've been like slowly marketing to leadership on, and I think what I think Patagonia does really well. If you come on campus and you go into a store, it is very engaging. It's about the community. If you're a surfer, we've got you. If you're a fly fisher, we've got you. If you're a mountain biker, whatever that is, and I think that experience really falls flat in the digital experience, and so I want to really connect off platform, on platform, in the most engaging community way possible. Interactive content, all the things, right? And so I'm still kind of putting that puzzle together, but when it comes together, it's going to be awesome. And I'm really excited about kind of building that vision. And I know that, sometimes you have a vision and the pieces aren't all there yet. Like I don't think that there's just one entity to solve for it, but it's probably a multitude of things. And there's so many smart people within the organization that I'm sure we'll figure it out, like scientists included. So it's really exciting. Yeah.
I don't know if it's similar. It reminds me of GoPro years ago. I realized because their products were so good, people weren't buying the next generation, right? They were skipping and waiting 3, 4, 5 generations for something dramatic to happen. If anybody owns a GoPro, you guys know, like they just don't break, right? They literally just don't break. They're phenomenal products. So they started becoming a media company, right? And having everyone who used their products upload content, which made them a massive media hub. So kind of directionally, right? I feel like Patagonia would have so many natural people who want to showcase videos and pictures of their outdoor life.
Yeah.
I was just in New Zealand for 2 weeks, one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. If you've ever been, I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
It is an 18-hour flight from New York, which is not at all very short, and that's a direct flight, but highly recommended. So I was thinking about that in that scenario. Like the amount of people with the passion behind your brand, I feel like the organic content that could be ready for you would be pretty overwhelming.
Absolutely. Yeah. We already do full-length feature films. We have our own media house in-house technically already, but we don't leverage it in that way. And I think that sort of organic piece that you talk about is something that is a huge unlock for the brand. And I think there's they've been very controlled about what that looks like, and so we're just trying to convince them that there's a way we can do that. It still fits their high visual standards. If you've ever bought it on our website, you'll see like the photography's next level. It's amazing. It's top notch. We're one of the original retail storytellers. We were telling those stories before people said that was a thing. So, and we continue to do that today. Yeah.
Awesome. I know we're getting close to Q&A session. So let me ask you the question that obviously we heard this morning, we heard yesterday, we'll hear all throughout ShopTalk, retail media, right? Patagonia is not a name you hear a lot in the retail media space. Angela, what's the perspective on Patagonia's vision of either participating or not, and if not, why?
I think it just comes down to just not wanting to like toot our own horns too much. I think it's more about letting the actions speak for themselves. And I think that's there's a humbleness to the brand, and even like events like this. I'm sure my boss is like, well, what are you at this conference for? Like, what are you talking about? Like if it's not something huge, like they were at South by Southwest and they just made the only free flowing river through all of Europe a national park. Like, I can't compete with that, right? Like that's enormous. It's been like 4 years in the making, and literally a CEO was flying over to various places to make sure this happens, and working with First Nation and communities and various things. Like, though that's the work that's amazing. So I feel like my job is just to try to get them as profitable as possible from a digital standpoint, so they can do more of that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's my world. So
absolutely. Yeah. Ready for some little Q&A?
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody's got any questions.
Hi. Michael DeMarco with Mountain
right.
Performance Television.
Yes.
Patagonia has some of the greatest video assets that are around. I absolutely love them.
Yeah.
Was just curious if those types of assets, if you would run them on something like connected TV, is that a brand safe enough environment for you guys?
Yeah, it is. We are on connected TV. I actually used to use Mountain in my last brand at True Religion. And I think guys doing an amazing job. Soft plug there. And so, we're trying to figure it out. It's so funny because there are such amazing full-length content, and we're trying to get like, can we do some short form? Can we do this? Whatever. But we have been testing it, and I think it's been purely acquisition in the beginning. And so now I'm trying to get the team to test more, balanced and retargeting as well. So absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, one in the
Oh,
back first,
okay.
and
So
then
my
you.
behind
No,
got a
you're-
mic. Yeah.
Good. Hey, Kellyanne Bauer. I'm with Material. My question is around the social media and like the ethical decisions that you've made around not engaging. And I don't know, I was just thinking about like, okay, so from an offensive standpoint, you've made that decision.
Yeah.
But there's still a defensive angle, right? So how are you thinking about that in social
Yeah.
listening and things?
Yeah, that's a great question because we've been talking about that. So, my boss has challenged me, like, do we move off the platform entirely, both for organic and paid? And then sometimes it's like, well, okay, and because she feels it's toxic, that's her personal opinion. I live in social media in a lot of ways, so I can't say that. So I'd be a hypocrite. But at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, well, if we are there, do you want to be the light in the darkness, and show that you can be in a space that on that same platform that's not toxic, that's doing beautiful things and showing what we do? Or do we completely remove ourselves? So it is a philosophical debate that's going on right now. And right now we're, still going on for organic, and I still think there's tons of opportunity. I think there's some places that are probably safer spaces that we haven't even really explored. Like I think LinkedIn could be an amazing opportunity for someone like Patagonia, especially from the activism standpoint. So yeah, to be seen. And the fun thing about digital is there'll probably be some new platform 3 years from now that we aren't even talking about. That'll be the new thing, right? And maybe that'll solve our problems.
Let's start one, you and I. We'll work on it today.
I could try. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
To continue on that question, so since you're not on TikTok, you have this huge young audience you're not reaching. I'm wondering, what do you do
Yes.
instead?
Yeah, so I think that, again, it comes back to what's nice about that Gen Z group is they're really excited about in real life environments, or IRL as they say. And so I think for us, it's like, how do we get them into those types of things? And actually, a lot of the Gen Z consumers are more of our activism groups. So we show up in those spaces where, like I said, back to this sort of grassroots organizations, that for a lot of people under 30, that's really their first exposure to Patagonia, is that they're actually fighting climate change in some way, shape, or form. And though we don't take an activism and try to move them to a consumer, they might do it on their own, but we don't actually try to market to our activist people. But I think that them doing those actions and them being there when they were fighting the pipeline crisis in Alaska, like we sent up, clothing for people that were like literally being outside for weeks and weeks and months and on end. And we were already there. We were already there with the Native communities. So I think that those types of things are more valuable to us than trying to figure out how to do ads on TikTok. So I think, again, I think that's the beauty of being privately held, is we don't have the pressures of like, how are you growing? Where are you getting these people? Whatever. We can take the long game on that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys very much. I also learned something at the end. Angela, next time my daughter texts me in like some code, which I
Yeah.
never understand,
Yeah.
I'm calling you right away. I
I'm
didn't
not
know
the
what IRL
one.
was until you said it.
I just know that one.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you guys.